over everything. And, and my job again is to be in love with Gal, which is not a hard gig, and try to make her giggle, which is always fun.
He does so much more than that, but I like that you always sum it up that way.
Now we have a video questions for everyone from Erin Lynch in the US.
Hi, my name is Erin, and I just wanted to know what was your most memorable moment on set? Thank you. I love you.
Yeah.
We love you back.
I know what mine is. When Gal and I were fighting. Well, I mean, the characters were fighting.
Yeah.
And we were practicing this stunt, and we got it down, and it was great, and it was going really well. And she grabbed my hair, I think, and the wig just came.
You grabbed it? It got stuck in my gun.
Oh, it got stuck in your thing. And I don't know if we were tired or also it was just, we laughed so hard.
Mine was in Washington. I mean, the fact that we'd shut down all of Pennsylvania Avenue to make this huge film. The little 8-year-old kid in you is can't believe that you're doing what you're doing and that you get the privilege of doing it. I don't know, it feels like a dream in some kind of way, like you're stepping into the fantasy of playing make-believe on this scale in all the films that you ever wanted to be in as a kid. So that was a pretty special moment, I think.
Can I change my answer?
Yes.
That was so beautiful.
We've got one last question from a very special guest.
Oh my God! You look so beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, Linda, look at you.
Linda, everybody, Linda Carter, the reason that we're all here.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Patty. Hello, Gal. Hello,
Mama Bear.
Chris, Pedro. Oh my God, Gal. Hello, you beautiful woman.
Hi, Linda.
How are you?
The one you-
It's such a delightful surprise to have you here.
Thank
This is
you.
so great.
I'm so glad. We think about you every day, Linda, and we talk about you all the time. So this would not be a Wonder Woman panel, truly, if we didn't see your face. So it's so good to see you. So good to have you.
I'm so excited. I've never met you. I've watched your show when I was younger. I had Wonder Woman underoos, and I'm so excited to meet you.
Kristen?
Yes. I was also Wonder Woman for Halloween when I was a little girl. I mean, I'm so excited to meet you.
Kristen, I think you're so great. So we have a mutual admiration. And anytime when I meet you, will you do me a favor? Will you just throw your arms around me?
Yes, I would wish I could right now.
I'm beyond excited. I'm beyond excited. You know that I have been a fan from day one of Patty's. When she was first attached to this film, when my daughter saw Gal as Wonder Woman, she said, "Mom, I finally get it. I finally understand why everyone idolizes you. I finally get what Wonder Woman means to everyone." You know, and that's my daughter. That's my flesh and blood. So thank you, Gal. Thank you, Patty.
That's such a great story. Thank you, Linda. That's such a great story. And the first time I ever called you, Linda, I said to you, I want you to know we're not here to reinvent Wonder Woman, and we're not here to do a new chapter of Wonder Woman. We just hope to take the torch and pass it forward. And so that means the world to me, because I was that person who was so moved by you and your performance and the show, the beautiful show that you guys did. So being able to know that somebody as important as your daughter acknowledged that we could be having that effect on her is a huge compliment.
You are a true life Wonder Woman, and and I can't be more grateful to have your guidance and to be able to call you Mama Bear. And knowing your children now, thank you for everything that you've done personally for me, and I'm sure to the world. And this thing is whole because you're here.
Oh,
Love you, Linda.
We love you, Linda.
so
Yeah.
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 Whoop, whoop. Ow!
this,
We also had some submissions from fans that sent us pictures of their cosplays and fan art.
Oh my God.
I love that one.
Yes.
Exactly like having Linda here. It's like the classic. Like, who doesn't love to
Old
see
school.
The star pants, they're so cool.
gorgeous?
Super
Radical.
sexy.
Rocking it.
I know, she looks amazing.
I love
Yeah.
when men do that.
Yeah.
I love when I see people, like a man or different people, do Wonder Woman, because it really does go to the core of, like, we are all Wonder Woman, and that armor can mean something different on all these different people, and that's a great Wonder Woman costume. I love it.
I love the
Rocking it.
armband.
Rocking it.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
One, because I felt like,
Wow, this is from the first one.
yeah, the recreation on the beach and everything,
I thought that was
like,
your stunt double.
caught the spirit.
Amazing.
Like, beautiful work, beautiful detail.
Oh, look at that shield. Oh my
I
gosh.
know, amazing.
Wow.
It looks exactly like the original one.
Oh,
It's like the Norman Rockwell of Wonder Woman things, and so perfect, because it's exactly why we're all here. It's like,
look at the shoes she's wearing.
I know, so
That's always
The
what
red
makes me
heels.
emotional about this character, that, like, you know, we were talking numerous times about the fact that, you know, we've seen so many male superheroes, but we haven't seen enough female superheroes. And for girls, for little girls, once they see it, they believe it, you know? So for little girls to be exposed to these type of movies, whether if it's Wonder Woman or any other female-driven movie in this genre, is so important, because then, you know, it's so empowering. I love this piece of art.
this is such a gorgeous graphic one.
Yeah, I think I posted this one.
Yeah, I love the beautiful, you know, like a different culture being brought to a hero, because it is so universal. And so I love seeing different people take it on and turn it, you know, bring it into something so personal to them. It's just beautiful art too.
I love the bracelets.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
I thought this was such a great one.
Oh
because
my gosh, that's so
I
cool.
just love the spirit of, you know, maybe this is Nubia, you know, and I love that it's the different Wonder Woman characters, and it's a beautiful piece of work, and yeah, beautiful art.
Before we wrap up, Patty, before we say goodbye, I know, and more importantly, the fans here know that you wouldn't have come to the DC Fandom without a little something extra for them, right?
That's right, guys. We are so excited to get to be here and see everybody and get to talk to everybody and answer questions for everybody. But it wouldn't quite be a good fan event if we didn't share a little something back. So we have our second official trailer to show you guys right now.
This world is not yet ready for all that you will do. Your time will come, Diana. And everything will be different.
Citizens of the world, I'm here to change your life. Anything you want, anything you dream of, you can have it. You look like you saw a ghost. Diana, look at you. It's like not one day has passed.
I don't want to be like anyone. I want to be an apex predator. You've always had everything, while people like me have had nothing. Well, now it's my turn. Get used to it.
never been one for rules. The answer is always more. The way I fly, they will never find us.
I forgot to tell you.
What?
Radar.
Will they shoot at us?
Barbara, what did you do?
You know, I'm not so keen on this one. I figure you are, but you know what? I'm ready to go.
I think we can do better.
Parachute pants?
Yeah.
Does everybody parachute now?
That was great.
That was
amazing.
Thank
right?
you, Patty, for this. Thanks.
Okay,
Can't wait
and
to share more.
that, I think you have, as they say, dropped the mic.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here with everybody. You guys, I miss you so much.
Patty, Gal, Chris, Kristen, Pedro, thank you so much for stepping into the DC fandom with us today. Thank you. Thank you.
Obrigado.
Thank you, everyone.
Guten Tag, meine Freunde. I'm Dominic Porschen, your German host. Now, before we reveal our next huge announcement from WB Games, can we talk about what we just saw from Wonder Woman 1984? Are you kidding me? I thought I was excited before, but now I literally cannot wait for this film to hit the big screen. I'm so excited to be hanging out with all of you today here in the DC Fandom. I'm a huge fanboy myself, and together we are the reason comic books are published. We are the reason superhero movies and TV shows are made. So today, it's all about us, the fans. In fact, to celebrate you and your fandom, we are highlighting your art submissions and creative cosplay. Take a look at this art from some incredibly talented fans.
I am going to do her many jumps as I can do in a minute.
I'm not really a sporty person. I can fly. I do running and things.
My mask has cat ears and it covers my nose. Yeah.
I do running. Do.
I run and then I jump off. Oh, easy peasy. Now I'm going to see how many hops I can do.
Are there any gamers out there? What? I can't hear you! That's more like it. Now, I think it's safe to assume that the gamers are sitting on the edge of their gaming chairs right now, glued to their screen and twitching with excitement for our first big Warner Brothers games announcement. So, to tell us more about it, please welcome Billy Batson's alter ego, Zachary Levi.
Hello, interwebs. It's Zachary Levi, your favorite household Shazam. Many of you guys know I like me some video games. I'm a gamer ever since I was a little kid, which means I'm very excited to be revealing a brand new video game from Warner Brothers Games. We're going to meet the creative team in just a moment, but first, some brand spanking new footage from said game. We're about to play it right now for all of us. I've never seen it, so we're going to experience this together. Let's take a look.
In breaking news, we've received reports of an explosion somewhere north of the city.
We're still waiting for the police to confirm if there are any victims. This story is evolving rapidly. Please bear with us.
We heard this really loud boom. There was smoke everywhere.
Emergency services have confirmed that they've discovered a body buried in the wreckage. We're still waiting for further details.
Emergency vehicles it appears that a large portion of the building has actually collapsed.
In international news, an explosion rocked Gotham City earlier today.
We are now able to confirm that billionaire philanthropist Bruce Wayne is...
If you're watching this, I'm dead. This is a code black. This message was automatically triggered when I destroyed the cave and everything it contained. We both know it won't take long for Gotham's criminals to realize the Batman is gone. And you can't count on the GCPD. Haven't trusted us since Jim died. Gotham will need its protectors more than ever. I'm leaving you the Belfry as base of operations. Some of the technology is outdated, but it has the gear you need and all of my files. You've always had my back when I needed you. I know you'll keep Gotham safe. Good luck. And goodbye.
No one talks about them. Not a whisper word is said. For if you try to cross them, then the town strikes you dead.
I'm Patrick Redding.
I'm Fleur Marty.
We're both from Warner Brothers Games Montreal, and we're both thrilled to finally be able to show you Gotham Knights.
You may be wondering why we chose to tell this story and focus on these characters.
We wanted to shake up the status quo of Gotham City. We wanted to see what happens when you take away the safety of Batman's presence and then find out what happens. What happens when these heroes, the Bat Family, Nightwing, Batgirl, Red Hood, and Robin, have to step up and take on the role of new protectors of Gotham.
What's really exciting about Gotham Knights is that you, the player, will be able to grow these characters how you see fit. You get to see how you would step up and become Gotham's protector. You're not trying to become the new Batman. You're becoming your own badass superhero.
And as a bonus, we brought gameplay footage. This is captured in-engine from a recent build, and we just can't wait for you to see this. Take a look.
All units, shootout in progress at Elliott Center.
Multiple accidents. Too many. We can't respond to them all. Dispatch, where the hell is our backup?
Belfry, Elliott Center is covered in ice. Whatever's causing this is localized at the top.
Definitely Freeze's handiwork. You'd best hurry.
That's what the bike's for.
Units at Elliott Center. Air support inbound. Hostiles opening fire on upper floors. Air support, can you do a fly around?
On it.
We need a way to get through that ice.
We need to get past these guys first.
Looks like Freeze is back with a vengeance.
If he wants a fight, he'll get it.
We need a tank to get through that much ice. How are we supposed to stop ice guns?
Here. Heard you're down there having some fun.
Fun's one word for it.
Just a heads up, the chopper's under orders to fire on anything that moves inside.
The Gotham City Police. Drop your weapons or we will open fire. Returning fire!
The storm is getting worse. You need to hurry and find a way inside Elliott Center.
The GCPD chopper made that part easy. This doesn't look up to code.
Whoa!
If anyone asks, I meant to do that.
I won't say a word.
Tours were still going on when Freeze came through.
Those poor people. They didn't stand a chance.
Why can't we go up there and help Freeze?
You know how cold it is up there, right? You want to die of exposure? Be my guest.
This will only take a second.
Check it out. What the hell is she doing? Keep them occupied.
safest time to take the elevator.
You'd rather take the stairs?
These cables on the floor, guaranteed they lead to freeze. Belfry, status.
Countless dead, and the temperature's still falling.
We need to stop this, now.
Belfry wasn't kidding about this storm.
Almost there.
I see the weather machine, ready with the disruptor.
That thing's drawing so much power.
Field disruptors in place. It's charging.
Get away from my storm engine!
Is that what you're calling it? You don't want to be on the roof when this disruptor goes off. Trust me.
Irrelevant! I already have what I need. The storm has risen over Gotham. Nothing can stop it.
We'll see about that.
You cannot run from me! You will not stop me! Keep yourself to the cold.
That was amazing! That was so good. That was so good. Thank you so much, Patrick and Flora, for giving us this insight, all this info. I, for one, can't wait to play it. I'm sure everybody at home can't wait to play it. Speaking of everyone at home, before you take off, if that's okay, we'd like to answer a few fan questions. Yeah, cool. Here we go. Callum from the UK asks, what has driven you the most in the direction of this game?
Wow. Well, I'd say really there have been kind of three consistent ideas at the heart of Gotham Knights. First is having like a whole cast of playable characters that can continue to grow and reinvent themselves. Second, a real living, breathing Gotham City that keeps challenging you, keeps serving up danger. And then finally, it's that fantasy of the superhero team up. And we wanted to be able to deliver that in co-op play.
Copy that. Alistair from Kenya asks, what goes into deciding which characters you are going to develop a game around?
Well, we chose characters who resonate with players on a few different axes. We wanted heroes who embodied different aspects of the Bat family. The detective side, as well as the fighter, the scourge of the underworld, the urban legend. We looked for characters that offer players a unique starting point and then a long runway for growth. Ultimately, we wanted heroes that could take on the forces that threaten Gotham City, but each bringing their own unique perspective.
Gotcha. Okay. Now we have Riley from the United States. Homegrown. Riley from the United States asks, could you give anything more on this WB Games Montreal game? Any other little tidbits?
We're actually sort of standing in it. The Belfry will be a very important location in Gotham Knights.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta keep a few secrets. We're gonna have more to talk about later.
We can tell you this, the mystery in Gotham Knights is way bigger than just the protocols.
Well, is there anything else that you would like us to know?
Well, our game is coming out in 2021 and we can't wait for everyone to play it.
Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Patrick and Flora, for sharing everything that you have. To everybody out there, I hope you've been enjoying DC Fandom. Continue to enjoy DC Fandom. I'm Zachary Levi. Mwah. Love you.
Wow. Just wow. Honestly, I have been yearning to step in the boots of those characters for a long time. I guess dreams really do come true. And don't go anywhere, we will be back with The Flash in a flash. So unless you can be in two places at once, be sure to stay with us.
Hey everybody, I'm Tyrone Edwards, your Canadian host, and I want to know how much you're loving DC Fandom. So tweet your replies right now with the hashtag DC Fandom. I'm so excited to be a part of this global virtual experience, the only place to hear the latest announcements from DC. We've got one for you now, so let's check out what's new with Sandman from the creator himself.
Hello, DC Fandom. I am Yvette Nicole Brown, and I am so excited to be here with you for the Sandman Universe Into the Dreaming DC Fandom panel. Today, we'll be discussing the comic book series and how it's been expanded with new stories, adapted into new media, and how it continues to enthrall audiences all around the world. Let's meet our awesome panelists. As one of the most popular and critically acclaimed graphic novels of all time, Neil Gaiman's award-winning masterpiece, The Sandman, set the standard for mature lyrical fantasy in the modern comics era. It has been translated in over 15 languages and is available in over 30 territories. I am thrilled to be here with Neil Gaiman. Hi, Neil. Nice to see you again.
Hi, Yvette. Lovely to see you.
Oh, you look so good in your little box. Now, Neil, you started The Sandman as a ground-up reimagining of an older DC property. At what point did you realize how much bigger the story could be? Did you know from page one, or did you find it on the way?
A bit of both. Started in 1987 when I was a 26-year-old writer, and I'd been asked to write a monthly comic for DC Comics. And all I knew was that I needed something that I could go anywhere with, that I could tell any kind of story, because I'd never had to tell a story a month before, and I didn't know if I could. So Sandman was originally imagined as something that would let me tell any kind of story I needed to tell. Probably by the end of the first year, I knew what kind of thing I was doing. And I'd say by the middle of the second year, I knew the shape of the whole story, and I knew what was going to happen. I knew who was going to live and who was going to die, more or less. And then it was a matter of just holding on tight and hoping against all hope that I actually would be able to tell that story before it got cancelled. The original Sandman, the first book, Preludes and Nocturnes, is 8 issues long. And it's 8 issues long because at issue 8 was when they would call you and tell you they were cancelling.
Oh.
And that you would have, you had a year, so you had 4 more issues to wrap it up. So I had, my whole plan was it was going to be an 8-issue storyline and then 4 short stories, and then obviously we'd be cancelled, except we weren't cancelled.
30 years from the original series, what's exciting to you about seeing the story continue, both in its new adaptations and in the Sandman universe comics?
Not feeling like I made a slice of history. Because, the idea that a 30-year-old comic still has relevance, that a story that's 30 years old, these were your grandparents' comics, and that they can still have relevance is incredibly exciting. So that's been part of the joy of watching over the last few years the Sandman universe stuff, where people are just taking ideas and spinning off with them and going and having fun and building them, and the joy of having people like Cy and now like Willow writing some of these amazing artists is a joy. And also I'm getting to do Sandman in different ways. I've been getting to do it working with Dirk Maggs on Audible as a giant audio drama where we've done a very direct adaptation. And we're also getting to do it now with Netflix as a slightly looser but still faithful adaptation. And so all of that is a delight, and it all makes it feel like something happening now and not like something that happened a long time ago.
The Sandman universe has a new series which started on August 4th, The Dreaming Waking Hours, and it's written by our next guest, G. Willow Wilson. G. Willow, I love your name.
Oh, thank you so much. Hi, Yvette. How are you?
It is so nice to meet you. Now, G. Willow, you first came to The Sandman purely as a fan in your teenage years. What did the series mean to you at that age?
You know, I first read The Sandman in the late 90s as a teenage goth. And for me, what's interesting looking back now is that by the time I read that series, it was already part of the culture. And so I was already wearing the death outfit without knowing what it was. So, you know, to pick up the series and be like, oh, this is where this comes from was really, really interesting for me. And it had a huge impact, I think, on my sense of how you tell stories in the graphic medium, of the scope of the kinds of stories you can tell, the way that you can put on a twist on legacy characters to make them relevant and fresh again for a new audience. And all of those tools that I was sort of unconsciously picking up reading that series at that age, I think have been tremendously valuable to me, you know, in my own creative life, reimagining different stories and working in, you know, sort of the Sandman universe. So it really feels like coming full circle.
Now, when you learned you were going to be writing The Dreaming Waking Hours, what did you want to bring into the universe that wasn't there yet? What was your in to the story?
When you're dealing with a legacy series that is as beloved as The Sandman is, you have to kind of balance two things. Number one, the history that longtime readers have with the series, the emotional investments that they have in that place and those characters, and also creating a new entry point for people who might not be as familiar with the series. I was sort of going through this roster of characters who've lived in the Sandman universe and in the Dreaming over the years and thinking, who haven't we heard from yet? And at the time I was going through a bout of insomnia and I was thinking to myself, my God, you know how happy I would be to have a nightmare right now, because at least it would mean I was asleep. And it was like a bolt out of the blue. All of a sudden, Ruin, this nightmare who's tired of being a nightmare, wants to be something else, was kind of there and complete. And I was like, oh, there it is. That's the in. That's how we get back into this history from a point of view that's conducive to bringing in new readers, and that maybe gives us a fresh perspective on this really beloved set of characters and place.
In my 20s, I used to have terrible nightmares. And then somewhere around year one of Sandman, they kind of stopped. And they stopped because every time I'd have a nightmare, I would wake up so happy. And I would scribble it down. I'd grab a notebook by my bed and I'd put the details of whatever this awful nightmare was. And I would just be so happy. And they just stopped. And I figured that whoever sent the nightmares just got tired of getting the wrong reactions from me.
That's amazing.
I cannot wait to read Waking Hours. Okay, so let me just calm myself down, silence my inner fangirl. We mentioned how the Sandman was transcending the panels of the comic book page. In July, fans got to experience the Sandman Audible series. Joining us now is the director of that series, Dirk Maggs. Welcome, Dirk.
Thank you, Yvette. Lovely to be here.
Oh my gosh. And thank you for bringing your hair because it's amazing. Neil and Dirk, how did you guys first meet?
It was a hair retrospective.
I knew we'd go there.
We failed to meet, although we first encountered each other in about 1992 when Dirk was doing, he was adapting The Death of Superman for British radio as an audio drama.
Yeah.
And it became a huge phenomenon in the UK. And Phyllis Hume, who was at DC Comics back then, decided that we should become acquainted. And she gave Dirk Sandman graphic novels, which was, Sandman was still being written. And Dirk read it and went, this is a drama. And what happened then, Dirk?
And then the BBC said, I think we've done enough comic book stuff with you now, Dirkie. Off you go and do some terrible comedy instead. And so that was it. We didn't do it for the BBC. And I thought that was it, game over. So it was very sad because I'd never read anything like it. And actually, I thought of all the things we were doing, and I'm very proud of our Superman and Batman. But I thought, wow, this guy is writing some interesting stuff here. Wouldn't it be great to put it in a studio? Little knowing it would take 28 years to actually get there.
Well, it was worth the wait.
Yeah.
Dirk, what was the process of taking the comic book scripts and turning them into an audio experience?
Really, the process with Neil was very easy because Neil is still alive, which is an enormous amount of help. It actually means I can talk to the author without using a Ouija board. And not only that, but the author in this case is a supremely kind, indulgent, patient man who will put up with the questions of someone who normally is just a drummer and give him intelligent replies. So it was wonderful to have Neil accessible, and the real joy was to actually get Neil's original scripts, which he wrote at the time for the artists. And one of the things about the scripts is they're kind of like the blueprint. They're kind of like the scaffolding behind the facade, which is the story. And you get into Neil's mind at the time when he's writing him, 27-year-old Neil, and what he wants to see. And what, I don't know if Neil, you knew this, but there's real poetry in your descriptions that no one but a single artist would read. Well, I know you know that now because you've been reading these descriptions as part of the narration, but really they were a piece of literary art in their own right, the script. So I had those to base things on. We'd come to the decision that we were going to stick pretty closely to the original work, because why wouldn't you? Effectively, there is nothing needs really changing. Occasionally here and there one might just, touch slightly on the steering wheel, but there is nothing much you need to do. And they just rock. They totally rock. So Neil as narrator now is being Neil the writer. We're in his head. And then off the page, I'm going to extend this metaphor to snapping point, come the characters and we get this wonderful sort of sense of being inside Neil's head. The nicer part, the classy part.
The classy part. Okay, well, besides the star actors, you had to cast something like 150 other parts. Kudos to you. What was that process like, Dirk?
Well, I've got to say, our casting team, Marielle and Nicola, who were doing a lot of the casting, did a fantastic job. There are way many more parts than we could comfortably deal with in a given situation with a studio that probably held 6 people and was really only built for 1. If you know the Marx Brothers works, you'll know there's a thing called the stateroom scene. Story from soup to nuts. So if you're in the room with them, you're watching one of Neil's greatest stories just happen in front of your eyes with a bit of extra Shakespeare here and there. So it was a wonderful experience.
Speaking of the amazing cast, we are joined by the devilish Michael Sheen. Welcome to the panel, Michael.
Hello, Zach. How you doing?
I'm good. So happy to have you with us. So, Michael, now you are on the hot seat. How did you put your spin on Lucifer?
I mean, I remember when I first read Sandman, I'd left Wales to come down to London to go to drama school. And one of my fellow classmates at RADA, within the first few weeks, said to me, do you read comic books? And I said, no, I don't. And I thought, like superheroes? I'm not really into all that. And sorry, DC. And he said, here we are. And he gave me some Alan Moore. He gave me V for Vendetta and Watchmen and Swamp Thing and Constantine and Sandman. And I remember reading the first few Sandmans and it just sort of, well, I mean, it did literally change my life. It gave me, it sort of both reinforced what I was already interested in, finding out about Joseph Campbell and comparative mythology and Carl Jung and I mean, all kinds of stuff. It just blew my mind. And certain things really stayed with me. And one of those things was the character of Lucifer, when you first meet him early on in the story, and that kind of young Bowie look. That image had really stayed with me. So when I came to do Lucifer, that was there at the back of my mind. And I loved the idea of someone who looks very angelic. I mean, he is an angel. He's the fallen angel. And that young Bowie with the curly blonde hair is very angelic and sort of chirpy. Hello, and it takes you by surprise. You're expecting Lucifer to be Lucifer. And of course, you don't have to. It's like, hello, Dream, how are you? And I love that idea of sort of surprising the audience and pulling the rug out from under their feet, which Neil is so brilliant at. And of course, the first thing I ever saw to do with the Sandman was the cover of Preludes and Nocturnes, the Dave McKean art. And even from that, I knew I was entering into a whole other world. And then, of course, getting to know Dave many years later was a bit of a dream come true.
He is such a singular talent and such a singular vision. It was weird with Sandman. I think we had this huge fight on our hands right in the very beginning when we told DC that the title character Morpheus would not be on every cover. I remember them coming back going, but how will people know this is Sandman? And we said, well, because the word Sandman will be on every cover. And having lost that battle, they never fought again. They were like, okay, well, obviously we don't know what this thing is, and they're doing things that break all the rules because you have to have the character on the cover, and they aren't. So they're just doing their thing. And it really was Dave having that fight. And also around Sandman 9, Dave refusing to be fired. Karen Berger fired him. He was in New York, and she said, we don't have time for you to do any more Sandman covers. And he said to me, I've been fired. And I said, what are you going to do? He said, well, I'm going to spend the next 2 days painting the next 8 Sandman covers, and then I'm going to send them over to her, and I'll see what she says. And that's what he did. He just made the rest of the Doll's House covers. Amazing. He did all the covers and sent them over. And what was she going to do? They were brilliant.
Of course, I'd spent a fair amount of time with Neil fairly recently when we did Good Omens together. So I got used to Neil being on the other side of the camera and close to me, which I liked. But he's sort of creeping ever closer, like a game of grandma's clock. Is that what it's called? Where, every time I look around, he's not behind the camera now. Now he's actually standing next to me in the recording studio, narrating the damn thing. I mean, if he gets any closer, we'll have to have an operation to be separated.
I love the fact that I get to work with Michael. Michael and I have been friends since 2010. And we've been working together since 2017, and I get to just admire him as an actor more and more. And the very, very peculiar feeling of having my friend Michael standing next to me in the studio and opening his mouth, and this voice that basically belongs to David Bowie playing Lucifer coming out of his mouth. And I'm just sort of looking and going, how does he do that? How can that work? And I forget that my friend Michael is also one of the greatest actors of our age. It was an absolute delight. We were incredibly lucky at the kind of cast who came out for Dirk, and also who came out for Sandman, because we're lucky in that there are Sandman fans everywhere. And we get to punch above our weight. We get to get Willow coming in and writing The Dreaming because she was a Sandman fan and she wants to write Sandman. We get Michael Sheen, we get Kat Dennings, we get these amazing people coming in and fighting to do it because they love Sandman. And we are so lucky in that.
Like we said earlier, The Sandman is in dozens of languages and has been in print continuously for over 30 years. Why do you think The Sandman not only endures, but transcends media?
For me, the answer is that I really didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't know what I was meant to be doing, and I didn't know how to do it. And I did it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that just doing it also meant that everything I was seeing, everybody I met, every thought going through my head, made it onto the page. And every way that I could tell stories, I was telling stories, I was trying new things. And I think that it hasn't aged and it hasn't dated in probably the way that it should. You can absolutely see places where it's completely of its time, and you can see places where my heart was in the right place, but I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I think that's fine and that's forgivable, because overall, I think I, along with dozens of astonishing artists and along with people who are unsung, like Todd Klein, our amazing letterer who did miracles that then nobody notices are there, creating lettering font styles for characters like Delirium or Dream or Desire. I thought I was making something completely disposable. If I'd known I was making something that would last, I probably would have had a lot more attention, and it probably wouldn't have worked.
How about the rest of you? Why does it transcend for all of you think?
Like I said, it sort of changed my world, really. It gave me an introduction to things that have had a huge impact on my life and who I am today. And it led me, it is a story about stories. And as such, as Neil said, he wanted to come up with something that allowed him to tell whatever story he wanted. And because of that, it roams across time and space and through mythology and history and Shakespeare, it was such an explosion of the imagination and creativity. And yet at the same time was grounded in a real kind of edgy, earthy realism as well. So it had something for everyone, but instead of being a kind of jack of all trades, it seemed so specific. And it was just like, it's like when I, as an actor working on Shakespeare, you can literally feel your brain expanding, like your consciousness growing because of what Shakespeare does in his plays. And reading The Sandman was a similar experience for me. I could feel my consciousness getting bigger because of what was in it and what it introduced me to. And because it is about sort of primal, deep things like the dreaming, like reality and concepts like fairy, and it of course it's timeless. It's about the endless, and the story itself is endless, and so it will go on forever.
Speaking from the point of view of adapting it to another medium, what's great about it is that it's doing everything that Michael's just described. It's this enormously, the conceit of it, and I'm not using conceit pejoratively there, but the scale of the imagination, all of Neil's misspent years in libraries as a kid, all that reading is just pouring out on the page, a sort of torrent, like a dump tank of ideas. And to have started this journey in audio, particularly where we're sticking very close to the originals, is great, because I know, well, we all know where it's going to go, but the journey of discovery is getting an actor. When Michael comes in and starts playing Lucifer, I'm thinking, oh, wow, I can't wait to hear where this is going to go. And of course, we have all that to look forward to, and the rest of the cast as well. So, I hats off to Neil. It's an astonishing piece of work.
Willow, how about you? Why do you think The Sandman endures?
To me, what was really astonishing about Sandman, especially the first time that I read it through as a teenager, was that unexpected people were at the center of the story. I think, we're kind of taught to look to the most obvious figures to be heroes, the politicians, the famous people, all of this. Whereas in Sandman, the guy sitting next to you on the bus could be Lucifer or the King of Dreams. And as such, you get stories about characters who I think were kind of pushed to the margins, especially at the time in other types of stories, right? And now they're at the center. And that makes you look twice at the world around you. It makes you sort of question, who is telling the story, and what point of views are we missing, and who is unmourned. I mean, that also really struck me, is that, like, this came out in the middle of the AIDS epidemic when, a lot of people were trying to push, these deaths and this terrible thing that was happening under the rug. And Sandman said, no, pay attention. This is important. These people are important. And that was very striking to me. And I think that's part of the reason that it still feels so relevant, because it kind of reminds you there are still stories we haven't heard. There's still things we're afraid to talk about. And it's the people around you who could be the true spinners of tales. And that really has stuck with me through the years.
Well, that answer was amazing.
I've thought about this a lot.
Oh gosh, it's so good, you will. I want to thank all of you for this wonderful time. I had the best time talking to all of you. But before we go, we can't forget about the dedicated fans. We asked and they responded, and we get it. You want to know about the Netflix show. So Neil, can you tell us anything? We've been asked about when it will be released. We've been asked about the cast details. What can you tell us, Neil?
Well, I can tell you that due to COVID, everything, as with every other piece of television being made around the world right now, somebody pushed a giant pause button, and we've taken advantage of our pause button just to try and get the scripts as close to perfect as we possibly could, which has been really fun. And that right now, as the universal pause button is starting to come off, we're starting to cast again. I'm getting these inspiring and wonderful emails with production designs, with places that I've only ever seen in the comics before, now being rendered in 3D, and I'm being asked to comment on it. That's amazing. There's not a lot I can say. Something that I will say is part of the joy of doing the audio adaptation was going, this is going to be the nearest thing we can do to an audiobook of those first 3 graphic novels, and hopefully all of the graphic novels. And we're going to start it in 1988. And it's going to end in about 1991 or 1992. Sandman is a very compressed story, even though it takes place all through time and space. That's where that story takes place. What we're doing with Netflix is saying, okay, it's still going to start in 1916, but the thing that happens in Sandman 1, the point that the story starts, is not 1988, it's now. And how does that change the story? What does that give us? What does that make us have to look at that we wouldn't have had to look at if we were setting it as a period piece? What is that going to do to the gender of characters? What is that going to do to the nature of characters? What's that going to do to the story? And that has been an absolute delight, because it means we are always being true to the story and being true to the characters, but it gives us tremendous freedom to go, okay, if we were doing it now, what would Sandman be? And that, again, is very liberating.
Well, as a fan myself, I cannot wait to see it. And I just wanted to share that I was a tiny part of the Sandman universe. Check this out. It's a drawing by artist Domo Stanton of me flying through the city.
Lovely.
Mm-hmm. I look good. Well, thank you all so much. It's been wonderful chatting about the Sandman. Thank you, G. Willow, Dirk Maggs, Michael Sheen, and of course, Neil Gaiman. Thanks for joining us, and enjoy the rest of DC Fandom.
Dreams, nightmares, demigods, and fallen angels, I am officially in and can't wait to dig into Sandman. Right now, let's get back to hearing from our fans and see what questions they, or maybe even you, have.
already Batwoman kind of stands out because she doesn't technically have like a superpower. Everything that she uses to fight bad guys is more of her intelligence and Luke and her physical strength. So I do look forward to seeing that, or for playing in that perspective, like from a Ryan perspective, from like this street kid's perspective, from a person that saw these superheroes growing up, because that was also really important for Ryan, you know, to see Batwoman be an out lesbian and to have a, you know, a superhero role model to look up to. And then now all of a sudden I'm filling those shoes. So to not only fill those shoes, but to play amongst the ones that have already been doing it, I think that that's going to be a lot for her. I'm sure it's going to be a culture shock for her, but I also think that it's really cool because it's really like when that world meets the superhero world and it's in all of its dynamics.
Hola mi gente, I'm Gabby Cam, your host from Mexico City. For nearly 60 years, DC has played with the intriguing concept of the multiverse. It allows multiple dimensions all to exist at the same time, which means multiple versions of me could actually exist right now. And not only that, on these other worlds, I could be a different gender, ethnicity, a villain, or even an alien. I wish I knew what kind of alien I would be. Maybe in this panel, I will find out.
The multiverse has been at the heart of DC almost from the very start. But the moment most fans think of is this one. In the Silver Age of comics, when the Flash met the Flash in 1961. In Flash of Two Worlds, DC created a story where the Flash could be Barry Allen and Jay Garrick at the very same time, and created the architecture that would allow DC to be expansive, inclusive in their storytelling and in their universe, and is the world that fans now know, and also laid the groundwork for the ambitious crossover event, Crisis on Infinite Earths. Crisis on Infinite Earths brought the DC multiverse to fans, bringing together DC superheroes and supervillains in a truly epic event. But this is not the first time DC has explored the multiverse, and trust me, it will not be the last time fans will see it, as DC is fully embracing this exciting creative concept and how it can open up endless opportunities for storytelling for our comic books, TV shows, film, and games creators. Here in the DC Fandom, I am so excited to have our own crossover moment and talk about what the multiverse really is for DC, how it informs every story DC tells, and how fans can expect to see it on the page or on the screen moving forward. I'm Tiffany Smith, and I'm so excited to welcome our panelists here today. First up, we have got a legendary comic book artist in his own right. He is also the Chief Creative Officer and Publisher for DC, and he sits at the heart of everything DC does and is a master of the multiverse, Jim Lee.
Thank you.
Next up, he oversees DC's films, which run the gamut from The Joker to Aquaman, and has huge plans for where DC movies are about to go next. Walter Hamada. How you doing, sir?
Hello, I'm good. Great to be here.
And finally, one of the key architects of DC's Arrowverse and the amazing Crisis crossover event, he is executive producer of nearly a dozen fan-favorite DC shows like Batwoman, The Flash, Supergirl, Doom Patrol, Titans, and the upcoming Superman and Lois, and many, many more. It's Greg Berlanti. How are you?
Very good, very good. Great to be here.
Let's just kind of go to the top of it, and I'm going to go to you, Jim. What exactly is the DC multiverse for people who may not know?
Yeah, I think when people think about superheroes, they know the names, the costumes, the powers, the origins, and it kind of tends to be this sort of monolithic kind of thing. But one of the things that really is distinct and unique to DC is that it's the first large work of fiction that has leaned upon this idea that we are not alone. We have this reality, this Earth, but that there are alternate realities that sit side by side with us, and the infinite number. And on each of these different Earths, we exist, but maybe in slightly different variations, right? We might be a different gender on another planet, or we might be furry creatures. And this extends to all the superheroes. So you start seeing this kind of endless spectrum of characters that you can create. And so it allows us to have the freedom and to create different versions and then lean upon that canon as we, change up the mythology and the pantheon of characters to better reflect the true diversity and inclusivity that our audiences want and that our audiences live in.
And you kind of touched on it already, Jim, but let's go to you, Greg. How do you feel like the multiverse really informs the stories that you tell through DC TV?
I would say that when we started out just with Arrow, 8-9 years ago now, it wasn't our intention to replicate what everyone had done so brilliantly in comics, and it wasn't until the Flash came along, and we tried in the pilot of the Flash to put the two of them on screen together, that I remember watching that first scene of the two of them together and thinking like, oh wow, this makes me feel like the DC books made me feel, like 1 + 1 = 3. The other thing it allows for is the vastness. You really feel the vastness of each of these different worlds, and I think it adds to the importance of these heroes and the myth of them, and that's been really exciting. And again, the element of surprise. If the universe that everyone's constructing, the different showrunners and creators and directors, and obviously with Walter and Jim helping shepherd all of it, if it can go to all those different places and still be tethered together, I think just as an audience member, I want to show up and not know, like, who might I see here, and I think that's incredibly exciting.
Well, and I think it's something too where, we talk about comic book writers getting to play with the characters in different ways. Same thing on the TV shows, where it's when you bring a character from one show into another show, those writers now get to play with that character or a different version of them, which I think the fans, myself included, have loved seeing on TV.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun for the actors. They love it when they play a villain version of themselves from another planet. Everybody loves to play a villain.
You face some of the greatest evils known to man, and you've defeated them. If you think so highly of yourselves that you can defeat any threat that comes your way,
how do you feel about us?
And like you said, you weren't really thinking at the outset about getting to this place of Crisis on Infinite Earths and seeing all of that. Can you talk to us a little bit about just leading up to that and everything that happened before, and maybe like when you got to the point where you're like, yeah, this is something we really want to talk about?
Well, I mean, really it was so much of our motto behind the scenes was to try and create episodes and seasons and shows that we would want to watch. And so it just inevitably kind of kept going in that direction. One of my fellow EPs, Mark Guggenheim, is my own personal encyclopedia for a lot of knowledge of these things, and was really, the centerpiece of production-wise pulling the scope of those things together. And I would be remiss if I didn't just say just how much his own passion for all that has been, very inspiring. But we sort of kept, building block by block, and then truly in the last couple of years, and again in working with Walter and with Jim, it's kind of taken a whole new level. We never thought we'd even be allowed to do Crisis, it was a pipe dream. We just kind of kept finding new ways to get all of our characters together. And then, the year before we did Crisis, we said, well, what if we just say coming next year, Crisis, and everyone's like, okay, yeah, you can say that. Well, I was like, well, I guess they've approved it then. Now we get to go. And that it was really epic. I mean, there were just so many, obviously, so many Easter eggs and so many different little characters. But then, the guys calling about saying that if we could possibly fit in Ezra, is that a possibility? That's really for the first time historically combining a TV character and a film character in that way. Mm-hmm. I think it feels like the beginning of a whole new generation of how we can begin to do these things. And that's just as a storyteller, that's really, really exciting.
Well, I feel like a kid in a candy store being like, we got Crisis on Infinite Earths, what's next? But can you talk a little bit about what's going to happen in the world's post Crisis on Infinite Earths?
Well, we are, yes, because because certain worlds have been combined, we're mindful of that now, in terms of how that will affect certain shows. And, in terms of what our crossover event will be next year, I think truly because of COVID right now and the pandemic, our aspirations aren't quite as large. We'd just like to start shooting again. That would be, nuts. happy to invite any feature characters that the guys want to have on. I think that was truly a thrill.
How did that crossover event happen with Ezra? And talk about the conversation of when you guys were like, could this work? Can we get him here?
We'd been developing on the feature side our Flash script for a while, which was leaning into the idea of the multiverse and playing in that sandbox. And again, I'm focused very much on the movies and what we're doing. And Jim was just like, would you, since we're leaning into the multiverse, do you think Ezra would ever do this crossover? I picked up the phone, called him, and before I could even finish the pitch, he was like, I'm in. Tell me when, where. Like, he's just such a fan, I think, of the character and I think of the universe, and he understands the importance of Flash and the character of his role sort of in that idea of the multiverse, that he immediately jumped on it. And then at that point, it was just Jim ran with it.
We were in a meeting, I think it was Walter, me, Peter Roth was there. We kind of threw out this idea, and Peter was like, let me talk to Greg about this. And this was last minute too, right?
But we had shot the crossover. So.
Yeah, exactly. This is like right before the holidays.
We were editing, and then first call was like, well, wait a second. Can Flash also bring us back in time to do this? Because,
exactly. Yeah, so we're on the holidays. I knew that we're down the wire, but I knew how meaningful this would be to the fans, just because Flash's meeting created the multiverse. That the fact that this had never been done before, and that this was new footage. A lot of the stuff, like with Green Lantern, was kind of old footage. This is new stuff, and we had to track down the costume for Ezra. Luckily, he still fit into it. And Peter, spoke with Greg, and Greg graciously allowed us to do this at the last minute, very last minute. And Mark wrote dialogue at the last second, sent it over. It had to be kind of vague enough to not create too many expectations, but kind of solidify the fact that this is happening, that these Flashes are both the Flash in different universes. And the cool thing is, Ezra's Flash was never named the Flash in the movies. He got his name from meeting Grant, who knew he was the Flash. And that's like so cool to have that introduction into the canon, right? And so that was it. And it came together at the last minute, and it worked out great. Those guys kind of improvised and the lines, and
they definitely improvised.
There's a lot of improvisation.
It was touching and funny, and it was just a great moment. And then when it went live, man, people's heads exploded. And then I think,
there were a lot of people who worked on the show and had shot the episode and didn't know that it was in there. So they were watching. There were people that had been in the episode that were watching it live that night that wrote me and said, "I didn't know about this. Did you keep this a secret from me?" And I was like, "No, I wasn't. We just did it last week."
Yeah.
Is this cosplay? Oh, do you want a selfie, bro? I'm sorry.
We're not. No. I'm also the Flash.
You're also the what?
The Flash.
The Flash? The Flash?
It's complicated.
I like your outfit. It seems comfy.
Yours is pretty cool.
Smooth.
Seems safe
and breathable. Found Barry Allen. No! What does that mean? How can this...
This should be impossible now.
It should be impossible now?
You don't know about the...
Oh my God, don't do this to me. I don't know about the what.
Well, I gotta talk about that, Greg, because I know just the crossover events are such a big to-do anyway, getting all of the actors from all of the shows and the sets and everything working together at the same pace and timing, and then now throwing in the film piece as well. I feel like all of you guys, just from talking to you and, knowing you a little bit, that you're a huge fan, so you're like, we'll do anything to make it work. But what was that moment like for you?
Well, I was, honestly, I really do experience these shows just as a fan first. And so when I heard it, I just thought I would want to see that. I would want to see that, let alone be a part of it. And whenever anybody in this business is doing stuff from that place of like, how can we make this thing the best it can be? And how can we deliver something to everybody and that, understands and loves these characters as much as we do? Then the impossible stuff that seems impossible ends up becoming possible.
I think up to this point, we were the company was just organized in a way where TV was TV and film was film. And oftentimes DC and Jim was sort of the arbiter of like, hey, they want to use this character, using this character. And it became this like really weird situation where the fans don't, they love the characters. They just want to see the characters. And this sort of opens the door for us to do more crossovers, to really lean into this idea and just acknowledge the fact that there can be a Flash on TV and one in the movies, and you don't have to pick one or the other. You can love both, and they do both exist in this great multiverse. And I do think that moving forward, there's more opportunities for us to do things like this. And really, it at the end of the day, it's about the fans, and I think the fans want to see it. And it gives us a way to sort of explore maybe some different stories and different ideas and use the medium in a different way than it's been used thus far.
We can just dive in a little bit more into the DC films. Walter, for you, what does the multiverse really mean?
What the multiverse allows you to do is sort of lean into this idea of you can tell just great stories, and you don't have to really be as focused on it has to fit within a singular continuity. On one Earth, we have our Gal and Jason and Ezra version of the Justice League, and we can continue telling those stories, while on a separate Earth, we don't have to worry about the continuity. We can have a more grounded, real Year 2 Batman and build out that world and not really worry about continuity, story elements, and et cetera. And so it's really kind of the best of both worlds, and allows us to take advantage of everything that's great about what we've done and really allow us to sort of expand moving forward. And we're trying to keep it as simple as that. Like, there is that one Earth, the greater Earth of sort of this existing Justice League, and then the beginnings of another Earth that is sort of happening, that's early stages of Year 2 Batman. And then obviously there are outliers like Joker, which it doesn't exist in either Earth, but that's okay. It's all part of the multiverse. Matt Reeves can continue to build out his Gotham, and he's got great plans to how to build it out, and build it out in a way that's sort of innovative. And they announced recently that there's an idea of taking that Gotham and exploring it at HBO Max as a show. Like, those are things that you can do because we don't have to worry about how that would impact Aquaman 2 or how that could impact the Flash, and so I think it just opens doors for us in ways that you couldn't have if you had to have a singular universe.
So let's get into some of the questions that we've got from fans. The first one is for you, Jim. It's from Van in the US. Now that Doomsday Clock has concluded, will we see any more of Alan Moore's comic characters cross over with the DC multiverse?
Probably less on the crossover side. You don't want to, dip into the well too often and kind of make it too regular thing. It becomes too commonplace. You want to save it for really big epic storylines where you've got great creators like Jeff Johns, who's able to come in and really deliver, a story worthy of that kind of concept. But we are, there's a spinoff. There's a Rorschach series that Tom King is writing. It's not like necessarily a crossover per se, but we are exploring more of the Watchmen universe. It's obviously got kind of a second life with the HBO TV series, and so it's been kind of fun exploring that. But yeah, that's all I can share at this point.
The next one is for Greg from Swarup Kumar Singh in India. The Crisis on Infinite Earths finale showed that the multiverse is gone, and there exists only one universe and one Earth Prime. But since other shows like Titans, Doom Patrol, and the DC still goes on, is the multiverse actually gone, or is it recreated?
It's not gone. That was to really help us, sort of like the original reason for Crisis, when they were like, oh, we have too many worlds. Let's start combining things for the purpose of the books. I think for the purposes of the CW, those worlds are now one. But off network is like being off planet in a different part of the multiverse. But it's still alive and flourishing.
The multiverse. Every existence multiplied by possibility. And spread out before space and time in infinite measure. Civilizations rose and fell. And rose again across reality's grasping expanse. Life, a precious gift, persevering in the face of every obstacle. Until, finally, the age of heroes was born.
Okay, well, the next question is for you from Sumik Day in India. Will we get more multiverse movies or even Elseworlds movies like Superman, Red Sun?
I think it's the possibility is there. It's not. It really comes down to, like I said, our focus is great stories, and so if we come across the right filmmaker with an interesting story that doesn't work within our existing timeline, and it would work as an Elseworld, we would definitely explore it. I can say we're not currently developing Red Sun, so that isn't one of them. But it really comes down to when the right filmmaker or the right idea comes together. That's the beauty of the multiverse, is we can explore it. We can go down the road and take a shot at it. But what we don't want to do is be in a place, like Jim was saying, like it should be special. It doesn't. You don't want I don't think you want an Elseworld movie every year, like clockwork. Like it'd be much better for it to be a special thing. And we also want them to be great. We want them to be special. We want to make sure that it doesn't just sort of feel like we're just cranking out a volume of different versions of these characters. There has to be a reason for it. And I think it has to be a reason that we're excited about, that we think the fans will be excited about. So, yes, the answer is yes, there will be opportunities. That one is not one that we're currently exploring.
We've got one more question for all of you guys. This is from Ryan Keller in the US. With the existence of the DC multiverse, how do you approach managing a wide variety of characters, stories, and universes for DC? And how would you work to help keep the audience connected with such a large variety of characters and stories? I imagine that you guys all have like a board somewhere in your house that's like, you open the doors and it's like, here's the characters in the whole world connected with yarn. I don't think that any of you have that. If you do, please show us right now.
It's like one of those True Detective scenes or something, where it's just like newspaper
yarn, just yarns and pins. Yeah.
No, I think that is the challenge. There's so many characters, so many versions, but we have people through film, TV, within Berlanti's company. These are the assets we track and try to make sure that there aren't inconsistencies, and that we are constantly communicating between ourselves so that we deliver something that's satisfying and maybe paints a bigger picture. And now that this has been established, this multiverse across all of the content, I think there's going to be a greater need for coordination to kind of deliver even cooler surprises going forward. But I just want to really thank and applaud Greg for really laying the groundwork for all this, because they didn't have to do this. From what I hear from Mark Guggenheim, it's a crazy amount of work, and bringing all these people together to deliver something that could potentially be very confusing or complicated, and being able to tell a story that's kind of derived from the canon, it is an amazing thing. And the fact that they've been able to do it year in, year out with different kind of crossovers and big events has been a real blessing, I think, for the DC universe, and has kind of shown that it can be done. But we just need to be on top of the storylines and where the characters are and how they're being used. But that's part of the job, and a lot of